has been a quiet week in terms of weather across the United States, but that's all about to change because a massive storm is currently brewing in the southern plains. This storm will lead to severe weather, which could bring a few tornadoes, a winter storm that'll likely bring a ton of snow, and even some flooding. In today's forecast, we'll break all these threats down in depth to give you an idea of if you'll see severe weather, flooding, or a winter storm. We're about to be entering a fairly active weather pattern across the United States, and a lot of that has to do with this cold front that's extending from Canada all the way back down through Texas. And your initial thought is probably that this is going to continue to march out to the east, pushing a bunch of showers and storms and even some snow out to our east. However, that's not necessarily the case, because actually there will be a low pressure system developing back down in Texas over the next 24 hours that is actually going to be going to the north and as well as the northeast, which will actually bring the potential for a winter storm over the next few days. Along with that, it will also bring the threat for some severe weather across Texas all the way back through the Dixie Valley over the next 48 hours. So when we put the future radar into motion, we begin to notice that low pressure system developing back down near Texas, along with areas near Louisiana and Arkansas, which is where we're going to potentially see some flooding rains over the next couple of days, but that's also where we might see some severe weather. But eventually that low pressure system takes a turn off to the north and east, which will likely bring the potential for a small winter storm. Now, it's not going to be a massive winter storm that is spanning over several states, or it's not like an ice storm, but it will bring a few inches of snow to areas back over in the Midwest over the next few days, and a very small sliver, and I'll show you more on that here in just a moment. Eventually going into Friday into Saturday, that low pressure system quickly moves off to the north and east before most of the United States will be drying out for Saturday. But before we talk about the winter storm, there is a threat for severe weather today. It is a fairly small area, just a tiny marginal threat across the southeast sections of Texas. Isolated tornado is not out of the question. As we head into the future radar, a lot of showers and a few storms will be possible throughout the evening tonight. Heading into tomorrow morning is when we'll be talking about some flooding rain across areas like North Texas back through southern sections of Missouri, and eventually going into Wednesday afternoon and evening, that is when a line of storms will likely develop. It's going to be fairly disorganized, but we might see a few of those become severe with some damaging winds, large hail, and an isolated tornado threat, which leads into our next potential for severe weather, as the Storm Prediction Center has issued a slight risk for severe weather across areas like Louisiana, Mississippi, and southeast Arkansas. Marginal threat actually goes all the way back through Tennessee. The tornado threat is actually there tomorrow. We do have a 5% probability. I wouldn't expect any strong tornadoes, but a few brief and weak tornadoes will likely be possible in some of those embedded storms along that line that we're expecting tomorrow. So again, going through tomorrow evening is when that line will develop back down in Arkansas as well as Louisiana. That line will quickly move into areas like Mississippi and Alabama overnight Wednesday into Thursday morning before showers and storms enter areas like Alabama and Georgia, which is where we might have a small chance again for maybe some isolated damaging wind gusts heading into Thursday. Overall, there's a chance for some flash flooding. We do have a slight risk for those back from western Arkansas back through North Texas. Again, very small area for today. And then heading into tomorrow, the slight risk will shift back over to the east. Northern and central Arkansas back through southern Missouri will have a chance for some flash flooding. Green shaded area is your marginal threat for flash flooding. It's a low threat. Just make sure you turn around, don't drown if you see any flooded roadways. Now, going into the winter storm, we'll actually be watching a couple of areas over the next few days. One of them is actually in the central plains. Now, depending on how cold the temperatures get, we actually could see some snow back down over in areas like Kansas and as well as back through Missouri going into late Wednesday night into Thursday morning. It will be very strictly dependent on if the temperatures are cold enough to support some snow. Eventually, that'll move off to the north and east going towards the Midwest, where heavier snow is expected. And with the current estimate of snowfall across areas like Kansas, not a whole lot is expected. You might get lucky with a coating. A couple of inches back up here in Iowa is not out of the question, but this will not be a major winter storm, it looks like, for the central plains, bearing any major changes with the temperatures over the next 24 hours that are currently being forecasted. Now, the big winter storm will actually be back up in the Midwest. We'll be watching for some heavier snowfall going into Thursday morning in Wisconsin, eastern sections of Iowa, and southeast Minnesota. Eventually going into Thursday afternoon and evening, some moderate to light snow will still be ongoing across areas like Wisconsin and as well as the upper Michigan Peninsula. And eventually heading into Friday morning, few flurries or a couple of light snow showers will be remaining. But other than that, we will not see too much. So pretty quick moving winter storm. But even then, we're still talking about some pretty decent snowfall out of this. Now, very precisely, this very well could change a little bit. It could even go a little bit further south or a little bit further to the north. So just keep that in mind. But for right now, the current estimate is indicating that we'll see somewhere between 3 to 6 inches at the peak of snowfall. A couple of areas may get lucky and get between 6 to 10 inches of snow. And I mean lucky if you're actually looking forward to some of this snowfall. But other than that, a lot of areas on the outskirts will be talking about maybe a coating to an inch at best. So it's a very small, thin area that will be watching for some snowfall as we head into Thursday and as well as into Friday morning. Now, in the long term, we'll be talking about this in our next forecast. There is a possibility for an Arctic blast, along with a threat for maybe some severe weather and a large-scale trough to develop from the central plains all the way back down into the Dixie Valley. This could cause some severe weather and potentially brew our next winter storm. We'll be talking about this in our next forecast, so make sure to hit the subscribe button down below, click the bell icon, and like the video if you've not already. This forecast is brought to you by Platinum Contracting.